delighted that you've all given up this incredibly beautiful Vancouver spring day to come and sit with us. What we're doing today, my husband and I, Alfred Weber, I'm Geri DeStefano-Webre. What we're doing today is we're opening up a conversation. And the conversation has to do with navigating the Omniverse to disclosure and density ascension. I don't know if too many of you have noticed how polarized and how separated the energies are really getting right now on the planet. On one side, we have a Donald Trump, and on the other side, we have a Bernie Sanders. Right? So Donald Trump really represents this third level, this 3D level of density that we're all living in, which is very, very self-directed. And then you have Bernie on the other hand, and he's really trying to move everybody up to the fourth dimension, the heart being other-directed. So we have this absolutely glaring polarity that we're looking at. Today, one of the things that I'm going to do to start us out with is a guided meditation. And, I don't know how many of you in here have tackled any kind of meditation, but just think of it as a kind of an imagining journey that we're going to take. As I look out into the audience, I see a lot of familiar faces. A lot of my students are here today, and I'm really delighted that you've shown up. Tammy is, along with a few other people here in the room, are in my one-year seminar. And this one-year seminar is a seminar of transformation. It's built around psychic development and really clearing the energy within so that people can begin to raise their vibratory rate, their frequency, and to go through transformation. And hopefully, at the end of the day, a level of ascension. I've worked for the last 40 years as an intuitive and a transpersonal psychologist. And I've brought these two systems together to really assist people in moving through all of that information within. That's going to be interesting. So, in any event, what I'm going to do today is to create a safe container here, and hopefully we can block out some of the background noise and take you on a little bit of a journey on what it looks like to navigate the Omniverse. Now, I'm seeing that there's some folks here. I am myself a bit hard of hearing, and so I'll really try to speak up as much as possible. And if you're having a difficult time hearing, raise your hand and I'll try to speak up. Tammy is assisting me through the process in that if anyone during the guided meditation is having a difficulty kind of staying grounded, or if they feel a bit of unease, she's just going to keep looking at the group, and if she senses that someone is having a difficult time, she will get over to you and kind of help you ground and bring you back, right? We've never really had that problem when we've done these, but if you have any sense of discomfort or being too ungrounded, Tammy's the woman that's going to take care of that. Okay?
And you can just raise your hand.
Yeah, you can just raise your hand. And if you're going to have your eyes closed, and if you feel, somebody kind of touching you on the shoulders or standing next to you with a little bit of energy, that's what's going on. So what I'd like you all to do is to just get as comfortable as you can sitting in these great chairs. And I'd like you to close your eyes and just take a couple of good deep breaths. And as you breathe, Imagine, feel, and experience limitless white light surrounding the entire room. This limitless white light comes directly from Source. And as you breathe in, slowly, easily, without effort, each breath draws more and more white light into your body, straight through the top of your head. Imagine, feel, and experience this pure white light surrounding your entire body. It's a boundary, a shield of pure white healing energy. Slow, deep breaths. Check in with your body and any place in your body where you feel pain, stress. Just imagine, feel, and experience that white light moving to that part of your body, healing, protecting, and cleansing. Slow, deep breaths. And as you breathe, allow lungs and heart to fill with limitless white light. And as you exhale, allow all the stress, pain, toxins to be released. Full and empty. Full and empty. Our breath is the only thing we can't hold on to. Each breath surrenders to the next. We always have to let go. Full and empty. And imagine, feel, and experience your entire body being surrounded by this absolutely strong, protective shield of white light. And as you breathe, imagine, feel, and experience how the soles of your feet are firmly planted on the earth, grounded, stable, sure. Now, imagine, feel, and experience all of your awareness, consciousness in your third eye, right in the middle of your forehead. And as you breathe, imagine, feel, and experience being able to see and feel far, far sight beyond this place. Around you, you are aware of people sitting next to you, voices in the distance, humanity moving, going through all the challenges of growth and evolution, struggling, sometimes suffering. Imagine, feel, and experience with your ability to see far, moving, seeing, experiencing, feeling beyond that level of pain and suffering. And as your sight moves further up and through all the noise, all the energies, imagine, feel, and experience being in this place of pure light, seeing far and beyond into the magic of this solar system. Imagine we're on this simple little rock moving around a sun which moves, glides at some incomprehensible speed through the universe. Imagine, feel, and experience that we on Earth are on a spaceship, moving, feeling, experiencing through time and space. Imagine, feel, and experience having the sight like the Hubble telescope, seeing all those amazing images in space, beyond, the beauty, the vastness, and beyond, in some place, in some dimension, a pool, a void of pure energy, pure light. No effort, no struggle. Imagine, feel, and experience that possibility of being able to look and see our Earth, our spaceship, in that solar system, in that galaxy, a tiny, tiny speck in this vast ocean. Breathe deeply, and as you breathe, imagine, feel, and experience how we are all connected in the fabric of this multiverse, in the fabric of this greater Omniverse. Breathe, and as you breathe, imagine, feel, and experience your place, your being, your soul. And as you breathe, ask, feel, experience, what is the will of my soul? What is the will of my soul? And as you breathe, imagine, feel, and experience your soul, that will, firmly within your heart. Slow, deep breaths. And imagine, feel, and experience how all of our souls are connected. This great fabric of time, space, the will of the soul connects us to Source itself. Imagine, feel, and experience as you breathe your soul, your energy, moving effortlessly through vast expanses of space. There is no time. simply being present, breathing the will of your soul. Imagine, feel, and experience as you breathe your soul moving ever closer to this great pool of source of light, where all things are created possible. Imagine, feel, and experience your soul, our souls, in this vast community of souls. And as you breathe, imagine, feel, and experience what your soul, our souls, are creating. We, our souls, the will of our souls, the will of Source, are creating everything we see and know, experience and feel. Imagine, feel, and experience creating our spaceship, our planet, as the Garden of Eden it was intended. A place of beauty, life-affirming, full of possibility. Imagine, feel, and experience this garden. We are creating this place of beauty, life, in order for our souls to grow, to advance, to become conscious, to ascend together with our planet into a whole new dimension of beauty, reality, life, full of possibility. Imagine, feel, and experience being that community of souls moving through all the levels of the Omniverse, growing in consciousness, creating beauty and life and possibility for all souls. Breathe deeply and consider deeply the will of your soul. Creating, loving, playing in this huge, wonderful ocean of light. Slow, deep breaths. Imagine, feel, and experience your body, your energy, being light, healthy, full of possibility. Imagine, feel, and experience from this view, from this ocean of souls, feeling and experiencing your own struggle in life. And as you breathe, imagine, feel, and experience those struggles being part of the will of your soul. Embrace the challenge and breathe deeply. Imagine, feel, and experience your awareness in your third eye, being able to see and feel far. There are no limits. There are no walls or boundaries. Creation happens here. And as you breathe, imagine, feel, and experience how your body, is the vehicle, the link between earth and heaven and the dimensions above. Imagine, feel, and experience that you are the vehicle. You are the conduit for source energy moving directly through you onto the planet and to every single soul you meet. As you breathe, imagine, feel, and experience that you are the vehicle, the bridge between earth and heaven and source. You are the conduit through which that energy moves directly onto the planet. And as you breathe, imagine, feel, and experience what life would be like if one could remember always that you are a vehicle for that light. How would that inform your relationships? How would that inform your interactions with anyone you meet on the street? Imagine, feel, and experience life and energy coming through you and rippling out to every single soul you meet. As you breathe, imagine, feel, and experience the possibility of our spaceship, of our planet, Gaia, filling with light, energy, and love. Now, as you breathe, imagine, feel, and experience your energy moving from that vast ocean of source, that community of souls, and moving and spiraling down, down into your body. And as you breathe, imagine, feel, and experience your body, your energy, full of light and possibility. No effort, no struggle. If you can think it, you can make it so. Now, as you breathe, place your attention fully in your body. Feel the edge of your body, that skin, that envelope that contains your physical body, the soles of your feet, the itchy nose, the cough. And as you breathe, thank this body for being strong, patient, surviving, being that vehicle for your soul. Now, as you breathe, take 5 good deep breaths. Each breath bringing you back into this room, this time, this body, energized and refreshed and feeling good. And as you open your eyes slowly, just orient yourself back. Now, if you feel a little dizzy or a little ungrounded, a good thing to do is just to bend over and kind of shake yourself off a bit and kind of get back in your body. Today we're going to open up a conversation. It is a really big conversation when we try to figure out what do we humans have always tried to do? We've tried to figure out how all this works. You know, what is the nature of reality? You know, why am I here? What am I doing? When I first met Mr. Weber, Alfred Weber, 20 years ago, we just had our 20th anniversary, I had some idea of what I was getting into, some idea. What I have come to realize in the last 20 years is that he is really a visionary. Sometimes we get into these things where I don't always agree. I'm actually the skeptic in the family. And that's kind of interesting because I'm the psychic. And I've realized that much of what he thinks about, as you know, he was a futurist at Stanford Research Institute in the 70s. A futurist is someone who thinks ahead, not 10 years, not 100 years, but sometimes thousands of years. Right? And so he has managed, through his work and through his investigation, and I must say, many, many challenges in life, he's really become someone who has developed a view. So this is a conversation. We're opening up this view of what the Omniverse looks like and how it's constructed, and how, hopefully, we as people and souls can move through these layers and get to go back home, basically. Okay? So, after his presentation, Tammy and I will be available, as well as Alfred, to answer any questions. There's going to be about a 20-minute segment afterwards, after his speech, for him to answer questions. But if you have any questions about what we're up to or any of the material in the presentation, please don't hesitate to tag us and ask us. So thank you very much. I present Mr. Alfred Lambremont-Webre.
The title of this PowerPoint, we have 27 slides here. And what we've done is we condensed it down from 105 to 50 to 27. So this is really like, boom. And it's really a crystallization of a number of concepts. And this is something new entirely for us. And this is really the first presentation. So in the course of this, we'll be going into the content of each of these terms, because even the term Omniverse is very new. There's actually more than one book written on the Omniverse. There are now 3 science-based books written on the Omniverse. There's another scientist that has written books on the Omniverse, and we both published them in 2014. And there's all sorts of scientific studies about different inventions happening at the same time in different parts of the world. And so it's funny that another scientist and myself landed a book on the Omniverse both at the same time in 2014, but we'll get to that. Yeah, go ahead. So, just for those who like to go and follow up with more depth, those are 2 books that will be that you can use as source material in depth, that have the research and the references for many of the findings that we'll be sharing with you today. Today is mainly presentation of findings more than the research leading up to the findings. So as your interest is hopefully piqued, you'll go in and start reading more and discovering the Omniverse. I know that when I discovered the Omniverse, which occurred to me writing the book, The Omniverse, I had no idea that I was going to discover the Omniverse when I started writing the book, The Omniverse. And ever since then, it's been like, it was like a journey for me and an awakening. And I think that the other scientists had the same experience, because I went and got his book and read it. And it's amazing that you find other people who have the same experience. And we'll talk a little bit about this book, which has an unusual history. And there are copies of this book here for anybody who wants it. Yeah, you can go ahead. Okay, so the 4 things that we're going to talk about here, just the 4 main kind of deliverables or what's going to come out of this, is number 1, a concise internalization of the Omniverse. Our 3rd, cosmological body joining the universe and the multiverse. In other words, we all know about the universe, going back to grade school and high school and college science. And we know about the multiverse, going back to our studies in multidimensional science and even in regular science. We'll come out of it today with a science-based understanding of the soul development process of planetary and soul ascension. And many of you have been looking in on the process of ascension, but some people don't know what it is or what the theory behind it is and what it actually means. We'll be talking about a research-based overview of disclosure, including AI, artificial intelligence. That's a new part of disclosure that even I, who have been in the disclosure field since 1973, it's over 40 years, I only came upon artificial intelligence, that is actual sentient, inorganic artificial intelligence. I only came upon it the last 6 months, so it keeps itself real hidden. And its relation to the scope and feasible schedule of planetary soul ascension. In other words, why are we having all this disclosure now? And does that fit into planetary and or soul ascension? And finally, a love and soul-based approach or program for a service to others, Earth. Right now, we have sort of a mixed Earth. If we look at our Earth is really a time-space hologram. We're inside what's called the third density, which is a time-space consciousness density, and it's filled with a mix of souls. And that mix is basically two types of souls: service to self and service to others. And those are two categories of souls in terms of soul development. And the basic difference between service to self and service to others is that service to others is that 51% or more of their totality is really emphasized empathically on the needs of others, whereas service to self is upon the needs of self, either power needs or control needs or other needs, 51% or more. And it looks like, we'll go through this, that there's some evidence that the Earth is now in a position which occurs throughout very large cycles to move from being a third dimension, third density service to others planet. That is where Gaia said, okay, I'll let you guys fight it out here, and I'll take all this Fukushima radiation, and I'll take all of this depleted uranium, and I'll take all the AI. But it may have reached the end of it where it's got to move into a service to others Earth. In other words, Earth is changing, and Earth itself may be ascending into what's called the fourth density, which is not a time-space density, it's a love-based density. So it's more service to others. In other words, unity consciousness is we are one, whereas time-space is more in duality consciousness, which is more I win, you lose. That's the basic transaction inside duality consciousness. And these are sort of, they're not really oversimplifications, but these are the basic processes that are occurring not only at the individual level, and that began to occur in earnest as of December 21st, 2012, but that are occurring as we speak. In sort of the last ad on Facebook, I sort of put it on yesterday in case there were some people that wanted to come. And so I said, live ascension happening in Vancouver on Sunday, April 17th. And then I gave the thing. There is live ascension happening right here, right now, and everywhere. Because this is a process. We're actually in the process of transitioning through a consciousness density which, as those of you who go into the book, The Omniverse, you will see it all laid out there, how the Omniverse is constructed and what the processes are. It's constructed around dimensionality and densities of consciousness. And so we're involved in a process now of moving through to a higher frequency. And there are reasons behind it, and it's cyclical. We're in the middle of what's called the Great Year. Okay, so our universe was first formed. This is inside of canonical history. This is not esoteric history. The non-canonical history is off the charts. We really got into the Anunnakis and all the hidden stuff, but this is just on the surface. Our universe, first formally conceived by the Sumerian astronomers around 3500 to 3200 BC in our scientific canon history as a discrete creation of time, space, energy, and matter. And the multiverse, first named in 1895 by the American philosopher and psychologist William James as a collection of all universes, are now joined by the Omniverse, formally explored as of 2014 in mine and others' books on the Omniverse as central cosmological bodies around which humanity organizes its understanding of the cosmos. And so I believe now that according to the rules of science, we've proved that there's a universe, there's our universe, there's the multiverse, which is the collection of all universes. There are two Stanford scientists, and all of this is documented in the book, The Omniverse, who have come up with an estimate of the number of universes in the multiverse. And that number is so large, they call it humongous, that our minds can't comprehend it. But if you were to write it out, the number in 12-point type, it would be more than 260 million miles long. That's how many universes there are in the multiverse, and we're in one of those universes now. And so now, as a matter of science, we have the universe, the multiverse, and the omniverse. And when I set out to write this book, which got started as a result of a formal request I had from Oxford University to write a book on extraterrestrial civilizations and the law, I decided to write it according to the formal rules of science so that Oxford University and all the canonical gatekeepers of science would have to accept it as such. Okay, that's what I set out. So hopefully now the Omniverse should start getting into the world, lexicons. I mean, my first book, Exopolitics, was published in 2005, and by 2006, it was named Word of the Year. So that process has already happened before, and I'm familiar with it. As a child and young adult, I never thought I would be making a statement of this magnitude about my works. I mean, it's kind of, to come up and sit in front of groups of people and say, hey, I just wrote this book and I put on it the Omniverse, and there are three central cosmological bodies around which humanity organizes its understanding of the cosmos: the universe, the multiverse, and now the Omniverse. And by the way, my book was just published in 2014, and there are three science-based books that explore the Omniverse. But I'm making that assertion, even though it's been only in print for 2 years. And I believe that as a matter of science, you can make that assertion, even though all scientists haven't accepted it yet. So, next slide. The Omniverse. A new science-based term now exists, the Omniverse. And what is the Omniverse? It's defined as, number one, the totality of all universes in the multiverse, encompassing all time, energy, space, and matter. Plus two, the spiritual dimensions, including the intelligent civilization of souls, spiritual beings, and source, or some people call it God. We can map the Omniverse and prove its existence through the scientific method and the law of evidence, because we now have replicable scientific empirical evidence for the spiritual dimension that is gathered by the same rules of the scientific method as the empirical evidence for time, space, energy, and matter. In other words, what has happened is that now we have gathered a database that permits us to map the intelligent civilization of souls, spiritual beings, and source using the scientific method in the same way that we use conventional scientific data to say the universe exists. And it meets all of the rules of science. So therefore we say the Omniverse exists in the same way that at the time of William James, they said the multiverse exists, and they continue to say it exists. And in the same way, they say the universe exists. And the two sciences that have permitted this are exopolitics and parapsychology. And they're sciences that didn't exist. Parapsychology existed as of 100, 150 years ago, and exopolitics just came into existence in the last 15 years. So that's why the Omniverse is such a recent discovery. Now, what is the Omniverse equation? The equation expressing the Omniverse is, like E equals MC squared? The Omniverse equals the multiverse plus the spiritual dimensions. In other words, the Omniverse equals the totality of universes in the multiverse plus the spiritual dimensions, or souls, spiritual beings, plus source or God. That's the equation that expresses what the Omniverse is. And if you go back to the Sumerian astronomers, what happened to them is that the Anunnaki came down, and the Anunnaki said, forget about God, we're God, and the only thing that matters is matter. And they took and invented religion and anything to have to do with the afterlife, souls, spiritual beings, and God, they put it into belief. And so what the Omniverse represents is the integration of science and spirituality. And that is, we can now use science and begin to bring into, we can now use science and address what was formerly brought into religion by the manipulatory extraterrestrials who invented religion in order to control humankind. And that's why all kings and queens and popes and monarchs wear funny hats, because they want to imitate the extraterrestrials, the manipulatory extraterrestrials who occupied us for so long, who also wore funny hats. It's a great puzzle, but it's true historically if you begin to study exopolitics. So that's just to begin to give you some of the background as to why all of this is coming out now. This is the time when all of these secrets are going to be revealed. And it's not blasphemous to want to study the afterlife by science, because the afterlife and souls and spiritual beings and God are as much a part of creation as anything else. And they exist in order to be known, and they can be studied by the methods of science, and they can be measured, as we shall see. Next slide. So, what is the nature of Source or God? There now exists, remember that these are the findings from the book, the Omniverse. So this isn't the evidence, these are the findings. There now exists replicable empirical prima facie evidence that confirms some essential aspects of what major spiritual and religious traditions have taught about the nature of Source or God. This informs us that Source or God of the Omniverse consists of the totality of the spiritual dimension. God has empirically been found to comprise the intelligent civilization of souls, the intelligent civilizations of spiritual beings, and the Source or God itself. This collective entity of the spiritual dimensions has been empirically found to be responsible for the ongoing creation of the physical side of the Omniverse, known as the the exopolitical dimensions, or the multiverse, or all of the universes. In other words, the entire community, the entire civilization, the entire intelligent civilization of souls, plus spiritual beings, plus God, which is the spiritual dimensions, as a collective, create and maintain all of the universes and all of the galaxies in there, and all of the planets, and all of the exophenotypes, humans, reptilians, all of these intelligent civilizations. What the universes are, they're like a theme park for souls to incarnate into for soul development. So what is the mission of the Omniverse? The mission, a core mission of the dimensional ecology of the Omniverse appears to be the creation and development of souls and spiritual beings in the spiritual dimensions. In other words, souls, each of us has a soul, which is a holographic fragment of Source. Each of us is a holographic fragment, and the basic principle of holography is that the whole exists in each part of the whole. So each of us is God. God is inside of each of us, and that is why they say, Namaste, I salute God within you, because that's correct. And the core mission of the Omniverse is the creation and development of souls and spiritual beings in the spiritual dimensions, the intelligent civilization of souls and spiritual beings, along with Source God, collectively create and maintain the totality of the universes of time, space, energy, and matter in the multiverse. The purposes of the dimensional ecology of the Omniverse include the facilitation of multidimensional development and moral growth of soul in all dimensions of the Omniverse through a variety of activities. We don't only incarnate in universes like this one, on planets like this one, in our bio-avatars for lessons. That's part of our activity. Most of our activity in the universes consists in being assigned to helping maintain a particular universe, helping get a solar system off the ground, helping get a galaxy off the ground, helping tweak time in a particular universe, helping serve as a guide to a particular soul that's incarnating. We have multiple duties inside the universes, and we also can incarnate inside universes, inside bioavatars as humans. We can incarnate as intelligent birds on avian planets, intelligent cats on feline planets. This is like, it's a theme park. The universes are theme parks. Now, we're on a particularly afflicted planet here. There's a whole Star Wars background exopolitically to Earth, and that's why it's a tough planet to incarnate into. And we get a lot of points of soul development for incarnating here. It's a very rough planet to incarnate. The principle is that when you have a lot of resistance, that's where your soul develops a lot. And so it's a privilege to incarnate in such a tough planet. And a lot went wrong here over the last million years or so. And so we are like the shock troops that are helping bring this back to normal, okay? Think of Buddha, Christ as kind of the early parachuters, and we're like the second wave coming in, you know, that type of thing, to help raise the vibration of this sector. But that's essentially what our incarnation experiences are like. As an earthling human, we can advance our individual soul development. As I was saying, each soul is a holographic fragment of Source or God, and by advancing our development, we advance the development of the collective spiritual development itself. So by engaging in our own evolution, we're evolving God. Okay, next slide. This is some of the empirical evidence. We get into this in depth in the book, and this is just samples, for example, of the spiritual dimension, the evidence for life after death. There are various ways of doing it. That's a pictorial depiction of the interdimensional portal, say, between our time-space dimension and the afterlife dimension. In a typical death, say, the soul would leave the body and would teleport to the interdimensional portal between our time-space dimension and the afterlife. And there, there'll be all sorts of different experiences. We'll get into that, but if you go back to the early 19th century, say, parapsychological institutes in the UK, there are a lot of science-based studies of verifiable apparitions of dead persons that meet the scientific method. There's a lot of communications with, quote, dead persons or consciousnesses on the other side that are not telepathy, that are, you control for other stuff. Via mediums. If you fast forward to the present day, one of the great improvements now is that we can communicate with the afterlife, quote, end of quote, via technology, with computers, with video, with cell phones, it's called instrumental transcommunication, because all of these dimensions are frequencies. And I know people that have had conversations with a person in the afterlife on their cell phone, because the person in the afterlife had to get a quick message to them of great importance and call them up on their cell phone. And you can go online and actually engage in video chats like Skype with persons in the afterlife because it's another dimension. There are studies of reincarnated consciousness. For example, there's a Canadian scholar, he's passed over now, Dr. Ian Stevenson at the University of Virginia Medical School. Many of you have probably heard of him. He typically, children between the ages of 3 and 9 have spontaneous memories of prior lives, and he will go and locate those. He writes them down in the fashion of a sociologist or an anthropologist, then goes back and checks out what the memories are, goes back to the location, has many books that verify that, and there's a whole center at the University of Virginia Medical School based on him, and the reincarnation hypothesis is the one that best suits the data. So this is using the scientific method to check out reincarnation. And then there's a database of over 7,000 cases of hypnotic regression to soul memories of the interlife. This is where you have, through a particular laboratory protocol, replicable results, which is the basis of the scientific method. As long as you have laboratory protocols, replicable results, that qualifies as scientific knowledge. And so that is how we've gained a great deal of our knowledge of what occurs in the afterlife, how souls are created, what occurs in the afterlife, how souls are deployed in the universes, what occurs during incarnations, how prior lives are chosen, what the process of soul creation is. On the next slide. For example, some of the data that we have from this is the database created by Dr. Michael Newton and his institute. In the creation of souls, it's not a mass production process, but it's close to it. If you think of Source or God as a sea of light, our souls are like eggs of light. And if you, on death, as I was saying, it's very much like a near-death experience. In a typical death, the soul will sort of float above the body and will have some idea of the time-space coordinates, and then we'll be able to teleport to the interdimensional portal to the afterlife. That's the entry portal there. In a normal death, there'll be, the guide is there, and the soul's families are there to greet them. There are a lot of different types. If you have trauma associated with the death, for example, an accident or killed in a war, there's all sorts of processes that are applied to the soul there. There's orientation, there's a life review, healing, transition. When you're preparing for a new life, there's a whole process of life selection. There's rehearsals for your future life, so the people who are going to interact in a soul group and incarnate together can recognize each other. You'd say you're going to incarnate as certain family members or friends or allies or whatever. Well, you recognize each other inside because we're inside of a time-space hologram now. It's kind of a real-time movie that we get to direct and create within certain limits. This is a virtual reality that we're in now. And, so that there are all sorts of placement issues, soul levels, you have guides. This is a whole area in itself, which I'm sure that many of you have studied. But now we can see it as one of the databases that illuminates and provides the objective evidence for the existence of the Omniverse in the same way that, say, the atomic structure of matter provides the evidence for the existence of the universe. Next slide. Okay, just to give you an idea of what the current public opinion is and level of public awareness of the existence of the Omniverse and how far we have to go in terms of public education. This is a 2011 Ipsos poll, which is a good polling organization. And this was taken in 23 nations, basically in the G20 countries, which are, the most educated countries with a high GDP. And 51% of global citizens definitely believe in a divine entity, compared to 18% who don't and 17% who aren't sure. The Ipsos poll also found similarly 51% believe in some kind of afterlife, while the remaining half believe they will either just cease to exist or simply don't know about a hereafter. So you have 50% of the G20 adults are totally ignorant about their circumstances. And 7% of respondents believe in reincarnation. So that 93% are totally ignorant of the basic design criterion of universes and the multiverse. Basically, the multiverse and universes were created as venues for reincarnation, for soul development. That's why they were created. They were created as theme parks so that souls could go in there and grow. And only 7% of the G20 adults believe in reincarnation. So that's the state of cosmic ignorance of the scientific facts currently. If we sit back and just look at the planet. Now, there's a little bit of light. 24% of Americans believe in reincarnation. Now, that might be why Americans are being so targeted right now by the Illuminati. Because they have a very high, look at that, they're the outliers in the G20. They have that tradition, that spiritual. Why should 24% of Americans believe in reincarnation, which is way off? Only 7% of the other
Where does that come from?
What?
What's the source of that?
I think that American souls, you have a lot of ET, they're off the charts in terms of ET awareness, reincarnation, and all of that. It's the locus of a lot of targeting by both negative and positive ETs. And it's like this great cauldron. I think that would be the explanation for it.
It's running cauldron.
Yeah. Next slide. Okay, exopolitics and disclosure. Exopolitics is the social science of intelligent civilizations in the multiverse. Exopolitics studies the dynamic interrelations, for example, among the secret space programs and those secret treaty relations between the U.S. governments and many of the negative ETs like the Draco reptilians, the Orion Greys, and others, and that's why we have all this war. And that's why the U.S. is kind of a war machine. The Pentagon, the Department of Defense, brought about the termination of the proposed 1977 Carter White House extraterrestrial communication study that I directed. I was director at Stanford Research Institute of the 1977 Carter White House extraterrestrial communication study. Carter ran for office and was elected on a platform of opening up the UFO studies. I was approached by his inner circle. I went up to Capitol Hill in December of '76. I met with his inner circle, and then I proposed this study, and it was approved, and then the Pentagon shut it down. Why did they do it? Because it would have exposed Project Pegasus secret time travel program from 1968 to 1973. And what happened in that program, where the U.S. government has secret time travel, they can travel back and forward in time, is that my book, Exopolitics, which was published in 2005, was taken by the CIA via secret time travel back to 1971. So they knew what I was going to do in 2005 back in 1971. So that the secret government has been tracking everything from the early 1970s forward on a secret time travel track. Our study, if it had gone forward, would have exposed public secret technology transfer, human abduction, mind control, and other programs involved in the secret treaty relationship between the U.S. government, secret space programs, the solar system, and galactic slave trade. I'll show you in a moment an article that I published in 2011, which even my colleague Michael Sala just said that I published, along with my colleagues, the first visual proof that there are slave colonies on Mars right now. Existing in 1977, including the Draco-allied Dark Fleet Nazi drill bases on Antarctica, the Moon, and Mars. In other words, the Nazis, there's evidence that the Nazis in the 1940s, early 1940, had already developed spaceships. They had developed underground bases in Antarctica and on the Moon, and they had already transferred their headquarters to Antarctica and on the Moon in the early 1940s. And then they actually won the war in 1945 by covertly transferring their scientists in Operation Paperclip to the U.S. And when Admiral Byrd went down to Antarctica with his fleet to try and defeat the Nazi base, they whipped Admiral Byrd with their UFO fleet. And then, because they had UFO fleet, they took over the U.S. government from the inside. And that's why the U.S. government has been fascistic since 1947 forward, because it's really been taken over by the Nazis. You follow it? You see what I'm saying? In other words, things are really reversed. And so a lot of this, we went in there in 1977 and we could have opened it up. And so all those secret space programs, this 1977 would have opened up the interstellar corporate secret space programs, the Draco Reptilian Orion Grey Allowance, the infiltration of the Draco Nazi allied secret space programs into American life, including the John F. Kennedy assassination through my involvement with Congressman Henry D. Gonzalez in the House Select Committee on Assassinations. What happened was that in 1977, I both started the Carter White House extraterrestrial study, and Congressman Henry D. Gonzalez invited me to Washington in 1976, and together we started the House Select Committee on Assassinations to investigate the assassination of John F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King, Robert Kennedy, and Malcolm X. Who killed John F. Kennedy? The Nazis from Antarctica. Why? Because John F. Kennedy wanted to expose them. That's why they killed him. He was going to expose Area 51 and the whole thing. And it was the Nazis that killed John F. Kennedy. And they blamed it on Lee Harvey Oswald and the Cubans and the Mafia.
Don't they talk about the Jesuits?
Sorry?
Don't they, haven't they actually pointed the finger at the Jesuits with regard to that as well? Or is this all interrelated
It's
somewhat?
all interrelated. My uncle was a Jesuit deputy black pope.
Right.
And it's just like it's all interrelated because the Jesuits and the Nazis are like that. They work together. It's just
Yeah.
but the overall thing, if you look at all of this, is that what we were trying to do here was in the mid-70s was to expose all of this so as to lighten up the frequencies and the vibration of the planet. Because look at all this negativity that was running the planet, right? But what happened is that they shut us down. Do you see what I'm saying? In other words, there's always light workers trying to do things, but you get so far and then they shut you down.
Right.
So that's what happens here. And that's how the secret space program kept on going, is because in the Carter years, we had an advance and then they shut us down. In other words, Carter and John Kelly is one of the leaders in this research, and I published his work. Carter was actually taken above UFO spacecraft and debriefed on the spacecraft before he was president. He probably is a UFO abductee. You know, and so this is just some of the background that's going on behind the scenes to try and make this density a little lighter. So there's always like tugs of war between the dark actors and the light actors. Next slide. Okay, so this is a dimension-based typology of intelligent civilizations in our universe, which includes a wide variety of exophenotypes. Exophenotypes is just the scientific term for the different type of extraterrestrial civilizations. You know, you have the humanoid, you have the reptilian, you have the any higher intelligence can take any animal form, any carbon-based form, but it can take any silicon-based form either, and it can also take any artificial intelligence form, any machine-based form, or any plasma-based form. But this is a typology that we developed called the dimension-based typology of intelligent civilizations, which is solar system civilizations based in time, space, such as the human civilization on Earth or on Mars, which live under the surface of Mars, such as Homo Martis Terris. They're like us. And up until 9500 BC, Earth and Mars were a single interplanetary civilization. In other words, we had teleportation going back and forth. We had large vehicles going back and forth, and that's why you have pyramids there, pyramids here. Our solar system was an interplanetary civilization, and then we had a solar system catastrophe. And there are different interpretations of it. We don't have the final interpretation of it. One interpretation was that a fragment of the Vela supernova came into the solar system and made Mars into an obloid planet like a pumpkin and destroyed a lot of its surface ecology and destroyed the great maritime civilization of Earth, Atlantis, right? And other interpretations was that there was an interplanetary war. So there's more, information. So there's deep space civilizations based in time space on planets, solar systems, and in galaxies other than our own. There's hyperdimensional civilizations, intelligent civilizations based in dimensions higher than our time space dimension or density. In other words, in the fourth density, the fifth density, sixth and seventh, which are light and love-based densities. There's intelligent civilizations, governance authorities, which are like the galactic federations that join many different planets. And then there's sentient, inorganic, artificial intelligence. And that's a whole different actor. Next slide.
Perfect timing.
Okay, I just want to see how I'm doing. What does that say?
We've got 40 minutes left.
40 minutes.
With questions and answers.
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. Well, speed up. I'm only halfway through the slides, so.
What story, Alfred?
Yeah, I've got to speed up. Okay.
Time travel.
Basically, if you could, this is like a test, right? You've got two schools of thought. This is in 1952, UFOs over the U.S. Capitol on all front pages. Exactly 50 years later, these are UFOs over Maryland, but they were, in 1952, they also flew over the U.S. Capitol. In 2002, they also flew over the U.S. Capitol, okay? And there are two schools of thought now. One is Will Allen. Will Allen was an officer on Air Force One during 3 administrations, Bush 1, Clinton, and Bush 2. And he takes photographs of UFOs landing on the U.S. Capitol, congressional buildings, over the White House. He believes that these were interdimensional gray UFOs, and the same civilization of interdimensional grays came back the same day 50 years later, okay? If you go to other whistleblowers like Corey Goode, who was part of supposedly one of the secret space programs, David Wilcock, who's also a writer and an author, and Michael Salla, one of my colleagues, they believe that in 1952, this picture, which is in all of the newspapers, was a false flag by the UFOs from the Nazis in Antarctica, who committed a false flag over the U.S. Capitol in order to pressure the U.S. government into surrender to them, and that's how they took over the U.S. government from that false flag. Okay, so there's competing stories going on, and each one has its own arguments, okay? I can't take sides right now because I'm still undecided, okay? I mean, even yesterday, I had a long phone call from a colleague of mine who was the inside person with Dr. Werner von Braun, who was brought over on Operation Paperclip, and she said, Alfred, all those drawings of the Nazi flying saucers, Werner von Braun told me that they were just drawings, that they didn't have flying saucers. So, you get all this testimony from the inside, and it's, you know what I mean? So we'll see what time says. Next slide. Okay, so this is just for background for people who may have seen it. This is a case study. These are some of the life forms on Mars. This is from the Mars Anomaly Research Society that I'm part of. these are some of our researchers who get this from the Mars rovers. The top photo, that's like a gray on Mars. You can see him, he has his back to the camera. He's leaning on some rocks. His head is there, his back is in a gray kind of pullover, and his legs, he's kind of leaning over like this, and his legs are like in a blue trousers. The middle is like a dinosaur, a plesiosaur that they have on the surface of Mars. It's about 5 feet tall. And the bottom are scorpion men. They're hybrids between scorpions and humans. And you can see their heads, those are 2 scorpion men lying side by side on Mars. So that's what the surface of Mars looks like in some areas. Okay, next slide. This is proof, just to get, so the statements that we're making are documented. They aren't like wild statements. This is, together with Dr. Courtney Brown, this is on Mars for the JPL. This is an active industrial site located by remote viewing. There's a sense of despondency in the occupants. It's a laboratory setting. The occupants wear uniforms. It's a hardship post. The occupants cannot return home and knew this when they accepted. There's no ET content in there. It's a black budget operation. In other words, this is one of the slave sweatshops that they have in there, and they use this stuff to trade with the rest. One source says 900 other star systems. They kidnapped 60,000 scientists and their families from Earth and shipped them off to the slave colonies in the solar system. And it's done by the same corporate Illuminati, the Bush gang, and all those people who run stuff here on Earth. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this is just the background on artificial intelligence. This is an Argentine scientific base on southern Tool Island in the Falkland Islands in 1976. And basically, underneath this were 2 things. Number one, a blue ET base, positive ETs. And underneath that, there was a deposit of plasma-based off-planet artificial intelligence that had been placed there as sort of a time bomb, an ecocidal time bomb by rogue ETs that on command would terraform Earth into an AI planet, from a soul-based, love-based human planet into an artificial intelligence planet. And the blue ETs had been down there since World War I, deprogramming the black goo, the AI. And what occurred was that in April of 1982, the US and British intelligence became very suspicious, and under Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan, they attacked the blue ET base. They absconded with a bunch of the black goo. They took it back to England. They took it to Marconi Labs. It escaped from the labs. 30 of the lab workers, it's like a horror film, died horrible deaths, because this AI escaped. It went into the satellite system, and now it's created the internet, and it's created the transhumanist agenda. Next slide. And so it's created Morgellons. And what Morgellons is a communicable technology, an invasion of human tissue with self-replicated nanotubes and nanowires. It's created chemtrails. 80 to 100% of humanity is now implanted with nanobots and trained to banks of supercomputers wired to heart and artificial intelligence. It's created, this is a lady, and she just collects the goo that comes out of her mouth at night. She's a Morgellons victim. And that's just a collection of the goo. But if you take the red wine test, which is that you put some red wine, this is the protocol for it, and you spit into it, the red wine saliva test shows that 100% of humans now have Morgellons because you spit into the red wine and then you see wires that are moving around in the wine. Yeah.
If you do that test, if you're taking measures like organic sulfur or whatnot, I haven't actually done the test, but would that determine the degree of, activity of Morgellons?
Yeah, I mean, there are ways to get over this. And this is just to demonstrate that there's been an AI takeover, an attempted AI takeover of third density Earth, i.e., we're building up to Y ascension. Yeah. And so we have the third density Gaia, Earth. In other words, Earth is like the bio-avatar Alfred. And Gaia is like the soul that's inside the bio-avatar Alfred. I don't know what the name of my soul is, but my bio-avatar is named Alfred. And as I understand it from the science, one soul can actually be leading more than one life in the universes. In other words, I can be simultaneously leading 2 or 3 lives in different parts of the multiverse. Okay, next slide. Okay, so now we come to density ascension. Okay? Everything up till here was to set the stage for this. And density ascension, I'm presenting it today as a hypothesis, a working hypothesis for some data, and kind of a solution or a way out of the situation that we're in. Because for the last 40 years, I've been not only an exopolitician, but I've been an activist in all of the areas having to do with the Earth. I was general counsel of the Environmental Protection Administration. I've been involved in the nuclear, anti-nuclear movement. I've been involved in anti-chemtrails, anti-HARP. I mean, the Earth is getting walloped. And if you don't think so, you're in denial. Just go look at the oceans, look at the radiation. The normal radiation of the United States is 20 to 30 counts per minute. Okay? I have friends, because I'm in this, we're like, and they put out the monthly radiation bulletin, and you can subscribe to Veterans Today daily thing. It's free. Just go on the internet, and you'll get it every month for free. Okay? And there's no difference between the United States and Canada, let me tell you. And they've taken down, in Harper's time, right after Fukushima, they took down all the radiation monitoring there. The normal radiation, ground radiation, should be around 20 to 30 CPMs. It's now at 2,000, 2,500 plus CPMs. That's what we're walking around in. I mean, that's why I must tell you frankly, legitimately, I got a prescription for medical cannabis for my fibromyalgia, but it's for the radiation. We're walking around in a sea of radiation that is part of the depopulation program. So, and my mind is that of a systems analyst. So what I say is, okay, how do we get out of this situation? And one solution is density ascension. Now, if you're the planet Earth, if you're Gaia, and you're being absolutely walloped by people who know that they're ecocidal. I mean, as a war crimes judge, my fellow judge, Nanafer Bhagwat of India, who was a judge on the Tokyo International Tribunal for war crimes in Afghanistan, called the depleted uranium bombing of Afghanistan ecocide and omnicide, objectively. This is after a year of scientific trial with science from all over the world. This isn't journalism. So that the only way out of this is density ascension. Because all of the dark forces are controlling everything. They control the media. They control any remediation. They control the political system. What are you going to do? I mean, every change that I've tried to do from 1973 forward, when I began to get involved in this, the year of Watergate, man, they just hit you over the head. Density ascension. Density ascension is teleportation to a more advanced density dimension of consciousness. Density ascension is a specific mechanism for the development of souls and consciousness through incarnation of souls in bio-avatars in the third density, ascending to incarnation in a light body in the fourth density of consciousness in a universe of the multiverse. Ascension can consist of teleportation of the entire holographic reality of individual souls, entire planets, and all or part of its inhabited souls from one density of consciousness, even entire suns in its solar systems, to a more advanced density of consciousness. For example, if our sun went from a third density sun to a fourth density sun, it would become a green sun. That's known. I mean, once you get into this field, you begin to know the regularities. It's a known field of study. Ascension is a modality of soul development that engages the entire omniverse. Ascension involves a complex dynamic interaction of the dimensional ecology of each specific cosmological body of the omniverse. A specific universe, the multiverse, and the intelligent civilization of souls in the spiritual dimensions. That is why ascension is such a powerful event in the history of a planet and a community of souls. Next slide. Density ascension. In the ecology of consciousness of soul development in the dimensional ecology of the omniverse, density, quote, density is more or less the same as dimension. Density denotes a vibrational frequency and not a location, which the term dimension implies. The density structure of this reality is primarily expressed in levels, though each level has sub-levels within it. The density scale is a model used to communicate one's perception or orientation in relation to other realities. In the density-based models of the ecology of consciousness local to our universe, quote, density denotes a qualitatively distinct level of being. Each density has its own structure of life forms, perception, and typical lessons for the consciousnesses residing in it. In other words, we're in the third density now, so all the experiences that we have and the beings in it are third density beings. If you go to the fourth density, they're going to be different experiences and beings. Okay, next slide. Density ascension and service to others. There is both whistleblower and high-quality interdimensional information research to show that ascension or teleportation to another holographic consciousness density is a regularity of soul development in the dimensional ecology of the omniverse. This research states that Earth can, on rare occasion, achieve 100% collective ascension of souls from our time-space third density to a fourth love-based density. In other words, it's very, very rare that a planet will ascend to the fourth density with all of its souls. Okay? At other ascension times, great years, a partial ascension of souls is more feasible. One test for the ability to ascend from third density to fourth density as a Kehr separator is a soul 51% or more service to others. If the soul is 51% or more service to others, the soul is qualified for holographic teleportation to a fourth density reality. Service to self souls are transported to other third density planets via planetary upheaval, death, or extraterrestrial evacuation to ensure that Earth then becomes a fourth density service to other planet. Now, this is a hypothesis, okay? And the sources of this hypothesis are varied, but they include the Law of One, which is a channeled thing, Corey Good, David Wilcock, Shane of Toronto, online if you go to Exopedia. In other words, these are specific theories. You know, I can't verify this, although it's logical to me. Okay, I'm putting forth this as a hypothesis. I can't verify this in the same way that I can verify other materials because I don't. This is revealed material through interdimensional revelation. And in interdimensional revelation, there's a lot of inaccuracies, you know. So anyway, next slide. Some research, now here's where it gets interesting because we can compare this next thing to data that we have in 3D, in the third density. Ascension and the Great Year. Some research says that planetary ascension for the collective of souls on our planet occurs roughly every 75,000 Earth years. That's the Law of One. So I went, wow, aha. So what does 75,000 years bring up? That's almost synchronistically close to 3 great years. A great year is defined by NASA as, quote, the period of one complete cycle of the equinoxes around the ecliptic, or 25,800 years. Also known as a Platonic year, one complete cycle of the equinoxes means one complete cycle of axial precession. The precession was known to Plato and to the Roman Cicero, who defined the perfect year as the return of the celestial bodies and the diurnal rotation of the fixed stars to their original positions. In other words, on December 21st, 2012, we completed a great year. Okay? And what the Law of One says is that once every 3 great years, 75,000 years, you're going to have an ascension. And this was known by the Romans and by the Greeks. And guess what? Do you know what else is around 25,000 years? The Yuga. The Kali Yuga. Right now, you have the 4 yugas, the 4 different types of yugas: the gold, the silver, the bronze, and the iron. Right now, we're in the Kali Yuga, which is the iron, where it's 1 part virtue and 3 parts sin. That's why everything is so horrible right now. And according to one source, if you could go to the next one. Oh, it's not here. The Kali Yuga is supposed to end around 2025. So all of a sudden you have a correlation of ascension to the great year, and it was assumed that when we went through the great year that ended on December 21st, 2012, of the Mayans, that everybody would start ascending, right? Which is what we're doing. Now, the big question is this the 75,000 year? In other words, are we on a 3-year cycle or not? So anyway, I'm just putting out hypothetical questions for thought. Okay, as Geri said, this is opening up a conversation. Now, here we get to some of the really tough questions and to why this is important. This goes back to the issue raised by Dr. Michael Newton, the developmental soul level. The consciousness and developmental level of souls incarnating on Earth and our collective ability to comprehend the dimensional ecology of the multiverse constitute both a bottleneck and a key to the future evolution of Earthling humans in the society of organized, intelligent life in the exopolitical dimensions. What they found, according to the data in the Michael Newton studies, was that on Earth, the mix of souls was beginner souls were 42% of the souls here. Intermediate souls are 57% of the souls, and advanced souls are 1% of the souls. In other words, if you're a beginner soul, you might be able to be influenced by what I call ascension gaming, where service to self souls intentionally block ascension of beginner and intermediate souls through fear, through war, disease, crime, and poverty, religion, government, politics, secret space programs, false flags, mind control, and artificial intelligence. 42% is Donald Trump's approval rating. He gets all the beginner souls. That's what Harper got, right?
That's what you need.
You see how it works? Isn't that interesting? It's just hypothetical thinking, but once you start correlating things at the soul level, it becomes very interesting.
So what is he?
I thought Val would get a kick out of that, being a politician. Okay, soul power. So the long-term positive transformation of power, economic and social structures on Earth may depend on soul power. That is, significant soul development during an incarnation can occur as breakthroughs in how science-based knowledge and information about the dimensional ecology of the Omniverse is consciously internalized and openly acknowledged in human society on Earth. In other words, the more we can get this information out to people so that they get beyond the mysteries and the ignorance, and they say, my God, somebody's trying to manipulate my soul by selling me a bag of goods, and I really want to raise my vibration, and that's what's in my interest, that will begin to leaven up this dimension. In other words, information. Yes, sir?
Is raising your vibration, or the desire to raise your vibration, service to self or service to others?
I would say yes, because that is, I would say that maintaining a personal high vibration is the best thing you can do for your fellow human being, because there's a contagion effect. In other words, you're going around in a high vibration, and hey, everybody gets it, and you're cheery, and everybody else is cheery, and pretty soon, for me, okay, now, without getting it, for me, if you go to the United States, you come to Canada now, Canada, people are pretty cheery right now, I think. Compared to the States. Right?
Are people down in the dumps over there?
Well,
Next slide. No, we'll keep that for the question too. Okay, Omniverse disclosure. I think that this is what you're getting at. Disclosure at the Omniverse level can increase the percentage. See, these are hypotheses that I'm putting out. Disclosure at the Omniverse level can increase the percentage of souls ascending from third to fourth density incarnation. Full awareness of the interactions and dynamics with the Omniverse with the soul assists in ascension. The more you know, the more it's going to assist you. The more you're in ignorance and you're walking around with these false ideas that religion put in your head, or you have fear you're going to go to hell and all of that, and you're afraid that, you know, some refugee is going to hit you over the head or whatever, you know, the whole fabric goes down.
But doesn't happen the opposite though? They think you're a crackpot because you're in another dimension, so to speak.
No, because as you'll see, you become invisible.
Right. Cool.
The timing of ascension, okay, it's no exact dates. 2017, Mary Rodwell, she actually came here to Vancouver. She's an Australian extraterrestrial researcher, and she interviews these crystal kids that go up to the ships at night and come down. And her people, of course, you can't give a date with this because it's all a process, and it's independent of time. These are non-local processes and non-temporal processes, so it's hard to give dates. But they were saying that there's going to be a change of consciousness. When is ET disclosure going to happen? That's another way of looking at it. The Andromeda Council said, oh, we're going to have planetary ascension to the fourth density, but they had timing all off. So there's a lot of these memes going around, but there's nothing scientific that you can nail down. 2025 is one version. They say, well, that's the end of the Kali Yuga. And then from here we go into the Bronze Age. So it'll be better because it'll be 2 parts sin and 2 parts virtue. So, you know, things will get a little better. But what you can say is that holographic teleportation from third density to fourth density may be out of usual time. In other words, look, if the planet is ascending, the time scale of the planet is very much different from our own planet, from our own scale. The planet may be ascending now. That's very different from our own. I mean, we're just little creatures. So we can't feel it, but you can feel it if you're aware. In other words, I feel it. And many of us can feel. Being in third density doesn't mean that you're in 3 all the time. Third density is a gradient, you know. You're here at 3.12 all the way up to 3.999. And so you're in a whole variation all the time. So you're constantly going like this. And, you know, and maybe there's not a boundary between third density and fourth density. It's just a variation. I like, this is an Australian researcher who says December 21st, 2012, aside from being the end date of a cycle, was something I always saw as a crossroad of sorts, a deadline by which we really had to decide as a collective whether we would shift up or shift out. Really, those were the choices. Shift up with the Earth as she moved into a higher vibration, i.e. wake up or act out, or act on our consciousness or shift out. Game over for humanity. It's like last night I was listening to Rosie O'Donnell's speech. You know, she was attacked by Donald Trump. And she was really funny. She said, Trump is like the Lord Voldemort in the Harry Potter. And he says, this election in the U.S. is like a Star Wars election. You know, it's like the light versus the dark. And I don't know what metaphor she was using, but I believe that it's all part of the ascension drama, and that whatever forces are pulling the chains of the Republicans and the dark forces there, all of those individuals, both 5 minutes, well, I'm going to have to I don't think that they're going to kick us out. So, yeah, but all of those means like politics, etc., are actually intentionally created by higher dimensional forces, either positive or negative, to affect the ascension vibration in here and keep us down. Okay, keep on going. Next slide. The positive future came into activation on December 21st, 2012. A coastal event that was to have occurred on June 2013 that was foreseen by Casey, that the Farsight Institute foresaw the largest group of military trained remote viewers, and that DARPA in 1971 sent a chronovisor in time travel and saw the U.S. Supreme Court under 100 feet of brackish water in 71 didn't occur. Next slide. So what do we have? We have souls, consciousness, ETs, secret space programs, service to self, and service to others. Service to self is those who are committed to self, tribe, community, nation. For example, Nazis, Zionists, people who talk about racial superiority, me. Service to others, empathic connection to others, unity consciousness, needs of others considered in communications, 51%, loss of ego, willingness to go through the dark night of the soul, letting go of the ego. Service to self ETs are here to assist humanity, spiritual guides, ET alliances. There'll be a large disclosure event. Next slide. Here are 7 common experiences. I'll just list a few of them, which means that you're going through the ascension process. 1, you suddenly feel like you've jumped off a cliff with no net, with strong feelings of no sense of place and nothing to hold on to. This is an indication you have made a separation from older and denser energies that are now residing where you are not. 2, no one seems to notice you, pay attention to you, or to give you much of any regard. The higher we vibrate, the more invisible we become and the more noticeable it is. You will know when you are seen and revered, and these are the individuals you will eventually choose to put aside. 3, it is difficult to be in crowds and you are no longer able to participate in anything that has to do with group energy. 4, you feel very lonely but have few friends and loved ones that you regularly connect to. Love is the connector. And finally, just to let you know, this will be up at exouniversity.org, and on July 23rd, from noon to 3 p.m. at Portal to Ascension, we're having a big extravaganza, twice as much information as this, and there'll be no time limit. Thank you.